of a very modernist building in London, and in fact it's one of the least known graffiti of Banksy. Banksy is known for all this sort of graffiti, but this is one of his, and he makes a point, definitely a point. I mean, he's questioning the urban landscape we're living in. And how this all came about, and I'll start from taking you back into the situation, so I'm just going to go there, and then to the more recent examples of appropriating or even reappropriating and reusing some of the ideas of the situationist. And I'll explain you, I think it's the next slide, of where the term situationist and situationism comes from. Anyway, this is where you would see ideas about the situationists. As I said, there was an avant-garde group of people. They were started with about, how many I think there were 70, and at the end they remained after 15 years, 5 people. Things that we're talking about the mid-50s to the 70s, early 70s, we're talking about an avant-garde movement, and movements by that time meant you start, you throw people away, and you finish off. And 15 years was even a long time for a group of that kind. They were very much influenced by the surrealists, I'm just going to give you, and the Dadaists, and I'll give you a kind of a tree of genealogy just to see. However, you will see in the genealogy kind of tree that I'll show you that there is an influence from architecture as well at that time. But anyway, this is what they were proposing, of creating a tactic, a guerrilla tactic, meaning activism in the city. And street events that would shake passers-by out of the conventional habits of looking and thinking. Look towards building a new people's aesthetic build out of the ruins of the spectacle. They were thinking that what we experienced, or what they were experiencing in the 50s, was a spectacularized landscape, a commodification of the landscape, let's say, similar, it would say, of what we call nowadays the brandscape. Okay, full of advertisements, etc., of commodities, promoting commodities. So people were about that to consume images and products, and not being active members of and participators of what was going on there. Here you have two definitions of situationism. So one is about we must try to construct situations, collective ambiances, and sounds of impressions determining the quality of the moment. Obviously, as I said, they were avant-garde as well, so the language is very poetic too. And here's where you have a definition from Jean-Paul Sartre, the existentialist philosopher, again trying to give a different understanding of or definition of situationism. Here you have a few photos of the group. This is the main figures. In the middle, actually the guy with the glasses is Guy Debord, who is a key figure of situationism. I mean, he's known for his book, The Society of the Spectacle, which is written in the form of a manifesto. And there are a couple, I think there are 6 paragraphs of 6 kind of, how do we say actually the numbers within a manifesto? 6 statements, let's say. Yeah. It's not statements, there's a different name for what it is within a manifesto, but dedicated to architecture and urbanism. So if you're interested in that, you could go and have a look at his book, The Society of the Spectacle, and a particular part on urbanism and architecture. And here you have the tree, the terminology of situationism. Here, for instance, the interesting thing is that from this part you have the artist movements coming down to this. And from here you have a mixture of architects, radical architects, and artists. Obviously, you could see Bauhaus, which is obviously a name that you must know. But the international movement for an imaginist Bauhaus was actually, as I said, it was a group of artists, painters mainly, and architects who came from Copenhagen, Brussels, and Amsterdam. Okay, and it came down to 57 to 1972. The situation is international. But we need to kind of locate the parts that is more interesting for us, and how you could relate those to the second part of the lecture, which is the digital situation, as I would call it. So you have three things that are kind of introduce, three terms that you may be familiar, you may not have seen them before, which is psychogeography, the derive, and the unitary urbanism. Somehow, all these three were kind of almost unknown or left to almost in the back for about 20 years. It became very popular in the mid-90s, kind of being rediscovered by urban theorists and architects who wanted to propose different ideas and concepts about design. So, and how we could experiment with the urban terrain. So, I'll start with the derive, which is a method. And derive otherwise, or in Greek, in English, means the drift, drifting around. So, derive is a French word which describes a mode of experimental behavior linked to the conditions of urban society, a technique of transient passage through various audiences. If you can understand that, you just mean drift, like a technique of drifting through various ambiances. And what was coming out of that, it is this, the psychogeography. If you take this word, this kind of the psychology that the geography brings about to people, moving to different ambiances creates a different emotional state for the dwellers, for the walkers, for those who walk in the different, ambiances. So the study of the specific effects of the geographical environment, consciously organized or not, on the emotions and behavior on individuals, is what you get out of this idea of the drifting. And all this, when you start doing this too, you bring the concept down to the unitary urbanism, which is a theory of the combined use of arts and techniques for the integral construction of a milieu in a dynamic relation with experiments in behavior. So you see here, they change completely the language and they're trying to make it as scientific as possible. So what they were proposing is, by actually starting doing series of derives and bring this psychogeographic element to you, you will start understanding differently what is out there. And then you will propose the ideas on the unitary urbanism and bring it together the arts and the technology. In this case, maybe architecture or anything that has to go under the idea of technology techniques, which very well fits nowadays with the digital technologies. Oops. That starts now, I think, from one to the other. Okay. Is the politics of play homo ludens? Okay. So what they propose is that all these bring another element to the city of play. And if you think of what kind of cities, particularly modernist architects were proposing, were the ones for functionality, functionalism. So where is the element of play? There was no element of play there. So they were proposing that what we need to think about in the city is to start looking about the playfulness of the landscape. And they were proposing that the unitary urbanism, or the city that they will propose around this, show you a few slides away, the New Babylon, it was for the homo ludens, man the player. So we're moving from homo faber, man the maker, to the man the player. So the Lefebvre was very influential for the situation. It was actually the teacher, so the tutor of Guy Debord. So, and Lefebvre a little bit earlier in his production of space, was saying that the space play has coexist and still coexist, can see here anyway, coexist and still coexist with spaces of exchange and circulation, political space and cultural space. So we need to bring it forward again. So what they came about was not that. That was the beginnings of everything. That's how, let's say, they started being interested on the urban context. So they came across, Guy Debord in fact, came across this map. It was actually almost like a cognitive map, like showing how you actually think about the place you move, but as well the daily